עיניי עוד נישאות לאור, רבים חוכי אך גם פרחי, ולפניי שנים רבות לספור. אני שואל ומתפלל, טוב שלא עבדה עוד התקווה, עובר מזמור מדור לדור כמעיין מאז ועד עולם. אני שואל ומתפלל, טוב שלא עבדה עוד התקווה, חי 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 ימני עוד חי, זה השיר.
Everyone, and welcome to JNF National Webinar. My name is Ilana Meizels and I'm the Executive Director of JNF Victoria. Thank you for taking the time to join us this evening. Our guest speaker, Dr. Hayim Katsman from Kibbut Holit, will talk about life on the border. It is my great pleasure to introduce our moderators for this evening. Ronit Freid, State President of JNF Victoria and immediate past President of JNF Australia. And joining Ronit is Vicky Fleitzig-Martin, Vice President of JNF Victoria. If you have any question for our guest speaker, I invite you to drop them in the QA box at the bottom of your screen. Time permitting, Hayim will answer them for you at the end of the presentation. I will now hand over to Ronit. Enjoy.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you've all had a healthy and positive start to 2022. I'm thrilled to moderate tonight's discussion. I think this is the first JNF event for the year, actually, so a really warm welcome. I'm very pleased to have an opportunity to connect us all with the reality of life on the border with Gaza in order to better understand the vitally important project that JNF has undertaken for this Green Sunday, which is to plant trees in order to create a protective barrier against the shelling and rocketing from Gaza, to protect the people and the infrastructure in the areas at risk. For decades, the Western Negev or Gaza envelope was a relatively peaceful and quiet agricultural area. But as we all know, since the Israeli evacuation of Gaza in 2005 and its takeover by Hamas, the area has been beset by rockets, shelling, and incendiary balloons. It's an ongoing war, really. Please enjoy this short video, which will take you to the border region with Gaza and its people. Thank you.
We came to Sufa because we were looking for a meaningful place, and we find here a great community, wonderful people.
Living in Kerem Shalom is the most meaningful thing I'm doing in my life.
It's a place where you feel that anything is possible.
מה זה האיור הביטחוני? למעשה מה שהתחלנו לעשות זה לנטוע עצים מסביב יישובים שנמצאים בקרבת הגבול עם עזה. הווילון הירוק הזה למעשה מונע ירי ישיר של טילים על הבתים או ירי של צלפים, על הילדים שמשחקים כאן בחוץ, על האימהות שהולכות כאן עם העגלות ומטיילות כאן בשכונה.
I'm raising 3 children here. 2 of them were born here. They were grown into this situation. Every couple of months there's a round of fighting, and then they have to stay in the sheltered room.
Planting trees is a really important global mission. And here in Holit, there's even a greater importance because these trees protect lives physically and not just the environment.
When a rocket fell in our yard, a passion fruit bush saved our house and our lives. It absorbed all the ricochets except for one. These trees protect the people from the ricochets of these rockets.
We are building a new neighborhood today, and we need life-saving trees for our security, and also it's part of the IDF demand to approve the new neighborhood.
Green environment and trees and more safe areas is more attractive to new people to arrive and live with us.
It's very heartwarming to know that people very far away from here, from Australia, are thinking about us.
Thanks to our partnership with JNF Australia, we will be able to plant thousands of trees here in Holit, Kerem Shalom and Sufa, and protect also the environment and also the communities living here.
Thank you, JNF Australia, for thinking of us and for the friendship.
Our guest speaker tonight is Hayim Katsman. He lives in Kibbut Holit in the Western Negev, also known as the Gaza envelope, which has frequently been in the news. Hayim received his PhD in International Studies from the University of Washington's Henry M. Jackson School of International Studies in 2021. He has researched the religious Zionist communities of Israel extensively and written about current trends in religious Zionism. He received his BA in philosophy from the Open University of Israel and completed his MA thesis on the theology of Rabbi Yitzchak Ginsburg at the Department of Politics and Government at Ben-Gurion University, where he also served as deputy chair of the Academic Junior Staff Union from 2015 to 2017. That's a mouthful. Hayim has lived in Holit for the past 9 years and is currently involved in landscaping in the kibbutz, together with Oren Zvada, who came up with the idea of planting the protective trees. And I think that Hayim will introduce Oren a little bit later on. Hi, Hayim, how are you? And welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight. It's interesting to note that your PhD, is in international studies, religious Zionist communities. Could you tell us a little bit about what you felt were your most interesting findings from that study?
Sure. Thank you, Anit, for the very warm introduction. And thank you for inviting me to speak to you and all of the community in Australia. So my research is about, like you said, the religious Zionist community in Israel. And I came to that research because I grew up in the religious Zionist community. And as I was working on my MA thesis that, like you mentioned, was on Rabbi Yitzchak Ginsburg, I came to notice that most of the academic literature on religious Zionism has a very basic, fundamental misunderstanding of what religious Zionism really is. Because when we look at the term religious Zionism, it seems to us like an ideology, kind of this hybrid ideology, bringing together these two domains, the nationalist domain of Zionism and the religious domain of Orthodox Jewish religion. And that is how religious Zionism is viewed in the academic literature. But as someone who grew up in religious Zionism, I was able to notice that religious Zionism is not actually a cohesive ideology. Religious Zionism has very, very diverse ideologies within it. So I wrote about that, and I wrote about the different ideologies within religious Zionism. And specifically, I tried to understand if these ideologies are so distinct from each other, what is it that brings together all religious Zionism, all religious Zionists and makes them one society. And I argued in my research that what makes religious Zionism is actually the social connections and the institutions that connect between members of the religious Zionist society. And that brought me to understand different phenomena in the religious Zionist society and in the Israeli society that were not understood at first as religious Zionist phenomena per se, as distinct religious Zionist practices. And of course, this is just a few minutes of me explaining, years long of research, but I am happy to send some academic articles that I wrote on the subject to anyone who is interested.
Well, it sounds fascinating, and I'm sure there's a lot more we could discuss about that, but I kind of want to segue into, your arrival in the Negev and what inspired and motivated you to move to the Negev, the reality of life in Holit, how has it lived up to your expectations, and has it delivered any surprises for you living there?
Yes, I can say that moving to Holit literally changed my life. I grew up in Petah Tikva, which is a relatively large city not too far from Tel Aviv, in Israel's center. And when I was released from my military service, a friend of mine who I went to high school with told me that he moved to live in Holit. And he moved there because out of Zionist ideals, he wanted to move where he felt he was needed most. And I came to visit him one time in Holit. It's a very remote place. And immediately, the first time I got there, I just fell in love with the place. And I decided I want to move to Holit. And at first, I didn't think I'm going to stay in Holit for that long. I just wanted to live there maybe for a year or two and enjoy this wonderful place. But I got so deeply connected to the community in Holit and in the region in general that it just very soon became a home for me. And I decided that this is where I want to live my entire life.
Amazing.
That's great. Hi, it's Vicky here. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Vicky?
Yeah, really good, thanks. So you have made Kibbutz Holit sound like a lovely place to live, actually. And I was wondering, how does the kibbutz produce an income? Like, what activities do you guys partake in to, generate money?
Yeah, so the kibbutz is mostly privatized these days. So that means it's not like it used to be in the past where everyone who lives in the kibbutz works on the kibbutz. So I would say the majority of members of the kibbutz have their own jobs. Some are entrepreneurs, some work in education, some also work in agriculture. But the kibbutz itself has some possessions. First of all, we grow citrus trees. We have pomelo, clementina, oranges, lemons, and we also have orchards of mangoes. Okay, so that is a big source of income for the kibbutz. We also have a relatively large dairy that produces milk. And we have agricultural land where we grow. It varies, depending on the year and what time of year, but we grow wheat, we grow peanuts, carrots, potatoes. Mostly, I would say the majority of our income in Holit comes from agriculture.
Okay, you sound very productive, I must say. And as we all know, obviously, we've been living through the pandemic for the last couple of years. And how has that affected life on the kibbutz, both monetarily and socially?
Yes. I would say monetarily, I do not I do not think there was such a significant effect on the kibbutz as a kibbutz, but definitely there was an effect on individuals whose income was severely hurt, especially people who are entrepreneurs and they have small businesses that have to do with tourism or just that they have crowds coming. So they had more difficulty than others. But socially, I would say that the pandemic had a really devastating effect on the kibbutz because we are a very, very small kibbutz and we are a tight community. And some people
How many people on your kibbutz?
I would say including everyone, parents, children, people who are just temporarily living on the kibbutz, workers, not more than 200. So we are a very, very small community. And there were people who are a little bit of older age or they are in risk groups and they were really worried about the pandemic because even if just one person will catch the pandemic, then it will transmit around the kibbutz very, very quickly. So people were very worried about that. And, you know, there was a lot of suspicion. Some people during when we had the closures, curfews, so some people were afraid that other people are meeting maybe too many people from outside, people who are working outside. So there was a lot of suspicion and there was a lot of hesitance with regard to social events. So I would say in the last 2 years, from a kibbutz that used to have social events pretty much on a monthly basis, we have maybe only a few social events for the kibbutz in a year. And does that, you know, it causes isolation. It's very hard to create opportunities for cooperation between members of the kibbutz because everything has to happen outside and not always the weather is ideal for meeting outside. So I would say in that effect, yes, I can really see a negative effect of the pandemic over the past 2 years.
Well, I'm very sorry to hear that.
Yes, but I want to just say, I want to also say, I'm sorry, you know, it's I'm maybe presenting a very bad picture, but there were also very good initiatives that came out of the pandemic. Because we started meeting more outside, so we started to invest more in the environment of the kibbutz. We have a community garden that expanded tremendously since the pandemic. We planted trees in the kibbutz, and we are doing more activities outside. So you know, things are not good, but there is reason to be optimistic.
That's great. And I find actually here in Australia also we're doing a lot more outside, which has been, I guess, a benefit of the pandemic. So you've spoken about the challenges of living through the pandemic, but also the challenges of living in the Gaza envelope with, you know, something that we can't necessarily identify with. So I was wondering if you could discuss some of that, like not just mainly like, I guess, security, mental health issues, social isolation, things like that.
Yes. So this situation is happening in Holit even before I moved to Holit. So I kind of moved into this situation. Oren, who is here with me, he actually lived here to see it really starting, and he might have more insights on that. But in general, I would say that the conflict is not always visible, but it's always present. And what I mean is, it's not like I walk around on the kibbutz and I need to be worried, you know, that a rocket is gonna fall on me. But I always need to be aware, and I always need to have in mind where the closest shelter is to where I'm walking. And also, you never know.
Sorry, how long do you have to get to a shelter if there's...
We have, I would say, officially, the government says we have 15 seconds.
Yeah.
But in reality, it's maybe less than 5 seconds
Oh,
from when we
goodness.
hear the siren to when the rocket actually falls.
Wow. Okay.
Yes.
So no time.
Unofficial, the official guidelines say that when there is a time of conflict, we need to be 15 seconds away from a bomb shelter.
How far away are you from Gaza proper?
1.5 kilometers,
Right.
approximately.
And the
Yeah.
nearest other community to you, where is that? Which is that?
That is Sufa. It is maybe 1 kilometer from us.
Right.
One or 2 kilometers. Yes, and also Kerem Shalom, which is the third community that is involved in the project, is also very close to us.
Okay.
Mhm. And we are all very, very close to the Gaza border. Yes, and we also, we all suffer from the same situation. Yes.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit more about the security planting and the importance of the security planting along the Gaza border. Talking about how effective it can be, what it can achieve. Yeah.
Yeah. So first, like I said, I want to emphasize that the security planting initiative is an idea of Oren, who is here next to me. Oren Zvada. Yes, I will introduce him. Oren Zvada, he is the manager of our landscaping team in Holit. And he came up with an idea that I personally think is a brilliant idea. Because, we are suffering from these rockets and shellings for years now. And the solution that was always that always came up was building shelters and building them from cement and concrete. And also the fence with Gaza was actually remade these past few years. And it was made partly underground from cement. And we have been pouring tons and tons of cement into the ground in our area. I will just so you have an idea of how much cement was poured in the ground here. The state decided to establish 3 cement factories near the Gaza border just for the purpose of building that new fence. Okay, so we needed 3 factories of cement built just for that purpose. And here Oren came up with this brilliant idea that we can protect ourselves also with trees. Okay, and it's not, of course, standing next to a tree is not the same as going into a shelter, and they will not replace the shelters. The shelters are still important. But we don't want to live in an environment that is just surrounded by concrete.
Yeah.
Okay, we want people to want to move to Holit and be part of our community. And what draws people to live in Holit is the environment around Holit and the trees and seeing a green place in the middle of the desert. It's amazing. I recommend that every one of you, when you come to Israel, you're invited to come and visit Holit. We're going to be happy to host you and see this miracle that is happening in the middle of the Israeli desert. That's what we want to have here. We want to be this kind of oasis in the desert, and we don't want to just be surrounded by concrete. And that is why I think this is really a brilliant idea. And I will just say what the purpose of these trees is in a few short sentences. So the first purpose is we are very, very close to Gaza, and we just built a new neighborhood. And from the houses in the new neighborhood, you can see directly houses in Rafah that are just 1.5 kilometers away. And there is a risk of snipers from Rafah directly aiming at people living in these houses. So if we will have a barrier of trees, that will no longer be possible. That is the first reason why these trees are important. The second reason is because of the shrapnel of the and ricochets of the bombs that are thrown at us. And the trees, when they are planted next to houses, they can absorb these ricochets and they will not hurt people or property. And the third reason is that sometimes when we have the rockets that come from above, and if we will have tall trees that will protect the houses from the top, then the missiles will not directly hit the roofs of the houses, but they will first hit the tree, and then the damage will be a lot less severe. So these are really, really important trees, and they can really help us protect our community.
So I had a question about the trees themselves. Yes. Are there particular trees that are, you'd have to choose which trees are going to be best. And also you're not going to start with little saplings because it would take time for them to grow. So how do you source your trees? How do you choose your trees for this purpose?
Yes, this is a great question. I think Oren is better as a better person to answer this question than I am. So here, Oren, well, it's yours.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all. It's a really good question, and I want to answer it from the botanical side. I'm a landscape architect, and I'm the manager of a botanical garden not so far away from here, 20 kilometers north of here. And in our botanical garden, we study the many kind of trees and plants and their stability and how they can grow in the desert. And this experience is made for the last 60 years. And we're going to use some of these species around here. So they will grow even if, I don't know, there will be a drought or something like that, they can still survive in this harsh weather. Many of them we got from you, from Australia, many kinds of eucalyptus trees. We need them to be tall, we need them to grow fast, and we need them to be like a blind, like a curtain next to the border. So we need them to grow at least 15 meters high. That's
so,
okay.
So
thank you.
Yes.
So interesting. It's really interesting.
Well, thank you so much, Oren and Hayim, for that explanation. It's really helped us understand your needs over there. And so I was just wondering, what is the overriding message that you want to communicate to the Jewish community in Australia?
What first I would want to say that it is so touching to know that people so far away from us care about us and want to help us. Really, this project would not be possible without this unbelievable support that we are getting from you. And what I would say is that I think, like I said before about what I see as the brilliance of this project, is that you have an opportunity now to make a real change in our life, and do it in a way that doesn't maybe support more militarization of the Israeli society and the conflict. Okay, we want to de-escalate the conflict. We don't want the conflict to get worse. And I think that planting trees have always been a symbol of peace. Like we know the olive branch, right, is a symbol of peace. So I think planting trees is a really, really powerful message that we can bring to the Israeli society and to the Palestinian society and to the entire world also.
Well, thank you so much. That's a really lovely way of looking at it. And I was wondering if you would be happy to maybe answer a few questions from the audience. I think we've got a bit of time for that. I will just have a look and see what we've got here. Okay, so a question from Carol is, I'm surprised to hear that you grow mangoes, and how are the mango trees going, and do you produce many mangoes, and is the climate suitable for growing mangoes?
Yes, so Israel is really pioneering in research and development in agriculture. And Israeli farmers are able to grow almost any kind of produce practically everywhere in Israel, no matter what the kind of soil is, no matter how much water the region gets. We use drip irrigation, and also it's not organic agriculture. Okay, so we use fertilizers in order to help these trees survive in this area. But they are extremely productive, the mangoes. We have tons of mangoes per dunam on our trees. And
Do you export them, or are they sold within Israel, or are they?
They are sold. Our mangoes are sold just within Israel.
Okay.
We do not export them. Yes.
Okay, great. And I also have a question from Phil. Is the kibbutz self-sufficient, or does it receive a lot of government assistance to survive and grow?
It is completely self-sufficient. We wish we would get more support from the government, but we do not. Yeah. Just sometimes when there is a conflict, so the government remembers that we exist and they say, give us some money, but we are completely self-sufficient. Yes.
Okay, well, that's impressive. From Rob, are there any Bedouin in your area, and what are your relations like with them?
So the main Bedouin community, we do not have any Bedouin communities in our area. I would say the closest Bedouin community to us is maybe half an hour drive away. Mm-hmm. It is, we do have relations with Bedouins. Lots of Bedouins work in our kibbutz or generally in the region. And I can't speak, for everyone else, but me personally, I have great relations with the Bedouins. I studied Arabic. I'm fluent in Arabic, and some of them are, great friends of mine. But there are issues. I'm not trying to. I don't know if that was where the question was directed, but there are social inequalities in Israel, and the Bedouins are one of the communities that are suffering most from that. And there has been this transition from a very, very traditional society to a Western and modern state like Israel is. And that causes some conflicts. Hopefully the state of Israel will address them and solve them in a good way.
It's a huge topic all by itself, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Fill another webinar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, under which regional council does your kibbutz fall?
We are an Eshkol regional council.
Eshkol.
That is kind of the south of Gaza envelope.
Okay. And are the trees vulnerable to possible incendiary attacks, like if they send over the balloons to light them up?
I will let Oren answer that, but I will just translate the question quickly.
Some of the trees can regenerate after burning, but we believe that the trees can also stop some of the balloons from getting inside the settlements, from getting inside Holit. We've experienced a few times how trees actually saved in our settlements in Kerem Shalom, Sufa, and Holit, people from the ricochets of missiles. And okay. Yeah. We had balloons inside Holit, but they didn't damage any trees. Actually, in the botanical gardens where I walk, there were a few trees that were burned, but.
So, okay, that's great. So far it's been okay. Great, okay. And let's see if we've got any more questions here. Is the nearby, Phil is asking if the nearby border with Egypt is open.
It is, the border with Egypt is open, but the border crossing that is near us is not open. There is one border crossing in Eilat, which is more than 3 hours drive from Holit, which is open. So if I want to go to Sinai, for example, I need to drive all the way down to Eilat and cross over there. And there is a border opening in Rafah, for Palestinians living in Gaza.
Mm.
But that one is also not really closed, not really open, excuse me, and there are many restrictions on the people of Gaza exiting Gaza, as I'm sure you are aware.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we definitely are. And how many trees have been planted in your area?
How many have been, or how many are we planning to plant?
Well, both.
Okay, so I can say that over the past year, in Holit alone, we planted, I think, somewhere between 300 to 400 trees. But regarding the past decade or so, I think Owen can answer better than me. So Owen.
Okay.
Look, we in Holit, we put ourselves a goal to plant 100 trees every year. And we're keeping that goal in the last few years. We managed to do it. And in the last year, we managed to plant, as Hayim here said, we managed to plant around 400 trees. We keep track of our trees that we plant, where we put them on the map, we write the dates of the planting, and I came up with this idea because I saw it takes us a long time to do it. And also we plant very small trees because we don't have the money to buy big trees to speed up the growing. So I came up with this idea because we need to do it really quick and fast. We see that in the last 20 years, or let's just say over the last 20 years, where this rocket started to came from Gaza, we see that the solution is not coming. And it's not coming and not coming, and our communities are going throughout some rough times and rough periods of times. And we understand that, we have to do it quickly. We have to do it, so we need around, for our calculation, we need around 2,000 trees to plant in order to just, make a curtain.
And that's for Holit.
And
that's for Holit. And then the other areas also need planting as well.
Definitely, yes.
Yeah. And tell me, is the army, do they help you in terms of knowing where it's good to, like strategically, where it's good to plant?
I would not say they are actively helping us. We are going to do the planning, but of course the planning and the planting is going to be done with coordination with the military.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry, Vicky.
No, that's great. So, did Oren say that you had planted 400? Was that in the past year or so?
Yes, so, we planted 400. We planted 400 trees over the past years, but they are very, very small trees. And also many of the trees we planted, we did not plant them for security. We planted some fruit trees, and they are very small trees that it's gonna take them a long time to grow. So these are two different projects. These were different purposes. Yes, different purposes.
So you still want to plant another 1,600 then? And if we
want to plant another 2,000. We want to plant another 2,000.
Oh, another 2,000. I thought
yes, but these 2,000 trees, we want to plant large trees.
Yeah.
Okay, and in a different area, we want to make that curtain.
Yeah.
Okay, so these are two different things.
And if you received all the funds that you needed to do this, do you think that the planting could be done relatively quickly?
Definitely, we're ready. We're just waiting to know that we have the resources to do it, and we can just start doing it as soon as possible.
Well, we'll do our best, eh?
Thank you.
Any other questions, Vicky?
No, I think that's about it from our lovely audience. So I will hand back to Ronit to give the vote of thanks to Hayim.
Okay, can I just thank everyone, especially you, Vicky, and Ronit, and Ilana, for organizing this evening and having me and Owen here. And it is really, really great to see the support that we are getting from you. Unbelievable for me. I would not have expected people, in Australia to care so deeply about our community. And it is a great surprise. And hopefully I can come personally to Australia to thank you after this project is
You're very
completed.
welcome. You're very welcome. Thank you, Hayim, for giving so generously of your time, and for Oren as well, and for all your insights about life on the Gaza border. I also want to thank everyone for attending this evening's webinar. I think it's really important to connect with real people on the ground in Israel for that understanding of what's going on. I'd also like to add that our Green Sunday campaign offers us all a great opportunity. That opportunity is to perform a double mitzvah. The first mitzvah, as we all know, is to plant trees in Israel in the spirit of Tu B'Shvat. Now, normally in a Shemitah fallow year, we are prohibited from planting new trees. However, because our JNF trees fulfill a second mitzvah, which is Pikuach Nefesh, the saving of lives, we are permitted to plant them. The people who live on the border with Gaza are truly exceptional. We've had a couple of examples here tonight in Oren and Hayim. They are dedicated and passionate about their commitment to the land. They are like the pioneers of old, true Chalutzim, facing many hardships, the worst of which is certainly the existential threat from Gaza. Whilst we've all been facing the difficulties and stresses of COVID for more than 2 years now, Israeli families who live in this region have had to deal with COVID as well as the ongoing dangers from their very close and very malevolent neighbours. The security of this region is paramount to the security of the whole country, and the security of Israel is paramount to the safety of the Jewish nation wherever we live. So I'd like to ask you tonight to please join me and the JNF team and donate for Green Sunday. Show solidarity and support for the people of Israel in the Gaza envelope and help us to plant the trees that will protect their lives. Thank you. Thank you for attending tonight, and stay safe. Thank you.